Warm greetings. Welcome to Swayam Online Learning Portal. I am Dr. S. Ishwari, Head of the Department of Geography, Madras Christian College. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about evolution of atmosphere and what are all the evidences which supports the evolution of atmosphere and what are all the significance of atmosphere. In this lecture, we will be discussing about what are all the composition of atmosphere. So, what all the contents we will be discussing in this lecture? That is atmospheric composition, major gases percentage and variables atmospheric components and functions of atmospheric gases. So, these are all the components we will be discussing in this lecture. So, we know that the atmosphere is the word which have been originated from Greek word, that is atmos means vapor and sphaera means ball or globe. The atmosphere is the mixture of gases or envelope of gases which surrounds the earth's surface. So, how it evolves? It evolves with the gravity of the pull and push of the gravitational force, and air is the integral part of the atmosphere, that is the air makes the earth's masses. So, 99% of the total mass of the atmosphere is confined with the height of 32 kilometer from the earth's surface, that is from the earth's surface, that is 32 kilometers, all the atmosphere masses have been confined. So, what are all the important that is gases which present in this atmosphere are oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide and water vapor, which are all the essential for the biological life forms. The permanent and variable gases present in the atmosphere. So, what are all the permanent gases present in the atmosphere? That is the nitrogen, oxygen and argon. So, the permanent gases means it is a stable gas in the atmosphere. And then the next one is variable gases. The variable gases are the gases which change with the time and places. So, what are all the variable gases which present in the atmosphere? They are water vapor, carbon dioxide, ozone and dust particles. So, these variable gases strongly influences the weather and climate. Its influence is most in the changing pattern of weather and climate. So, the composition of atmosphere which consists of the constant gases as well as the variable gases. So, what are all the list of constant and variable gases are given here? That is the nitrogen, oxygen, argon are the constant gases, and then the variable gases from the carbon dioxide, neon, helium, ozone, hydrogen and xenon are the variable gases which present in the atmosphere. Major gases components, that is the constant gases, that is the nitrogen, which comprises of 78.8% in the atmosphere. The major portion of the atmosphere is comprised of nitrogen gases. Then it is followed by the oxygen, that is it constitutes the 20.95, that is 21% in the atmosphere. Then comes the argon gas, that is 0.93% is occupied by the argon gas. So, then comes the carbon dioxide, that is 0.04%. It plays a vital role. The carbon dioxide which plays a vital role, even though its contribution is very small, but it plays a vital role in the atmosphere. So, these stable gases which provides the stability in the atmosphere, and it helps the respiration process of the all biological life forms, and it also regulates the heat in the atmosphere as well as in the earth's surface. Variable gases. The variable gases are, the first one is water vapor. It constitutes 0 to 4% which controls the humidity and precipitation. So, what is the humidity? We have already discussed that the humidity is the water vapor content which present in the air, and then because of that humidity and water vapor content, it forms the condensation process, and then it leads to precipitation. So, this vital role is played by water vapor. Then the ozone. Ozone is the important layer, that is important gas which absorbs the ultraviolet radiation which comes from the sun to the earth. And then the next one is dust particles, that is nuclei. The nuclei, which the suspended particles which forms the nuclei and forms the cloud formation and which leads to the precipitation. So, this dust particle is also one of the major variable component in the atmosphere. Next comes the trace gas. The trace gas like methane, nitrous oxide and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, which affects the climate balance. So, these are all the important variable component, the variable gases which contributes to the atmosphere, and it plays a vital role in the life forms of the earth's surface. The first and foremost gas is the nitrogen gas. It is also known as the buffer gas. This buffer gas constitute the 78% in the atmosphere. It is a dominant gas which proportion is the largest one in the atmosphere. It maintains the atmospheric pressure. How it maintains the atmospheric pressure? It maintains the atmospheric pressure and it also helps in the breathing of the living things, that is biological life forms in the earth's surface, and it also contributes to the weather system. So, this breathing and weather system are the most important role which have been played by the nitrogen gas. Next one is that it regulates the climate stability. How it regulates the climate stability? That is, it helps to keep the temperature and atmospheric conditions with the life supporting limits. So, in what way means it regulates the climatic stability, how far the temperature should be there and how far the atmospheric pressure should be there. All these contents will be stabilized by the nitrogen gas. The nitrogen is a inert and non-reactive gas. The nitrogen has no color, no odor. It does not readily mix with or combine with other gases. It is very much active in reducing the oxidation. So, the oxygen is a gas which is very much helpful for combustion. So, if the oxygen level is increased in the atmosphere, it will give the adverse effect. So, that effect is reduced with the help of nitrogen by reducing the oxidation. It also creates the safe chemical environment. How it creates the safe chemical environment? It prevents the rapid reaction of oxygen and it also saves the earth's surface with the threatening, life-threatening activities. Then the nitrogen fixing bacteria which converts the nitrogen into ammonia and nitrates, which is usable for the plant and it is very much supportive for the plant growth. In such a way, the nitrogen is very much helpful. The nitrification and denitrification process is one of the major process of nitrogen. Return of nitrogen to the soil and the atmosphere, again the cyclic process happens in a routine process. This process is mainly because of this nitrogen cycle. So, it is one of the major role of nitrogen. Next, it is a continuous recycling process which supports the soil fertility and sustain ecosystem. So, because of nitrogen, the soil is fertilized and then it sustains the entire ecosystem of that particular place. Next, it is also essential for the plant growth. So, already we have discussed that it is very much helpful for the plant growth with the help of the nitrogen fixing bacteria. So, this nitrogen enables the formation of protein, DNA and chlorophyll and enzymes for the plant growth, and it supports the energy of plant growth. So, nitrogen plays a vital role in the plant growth. The next is the food chain support. How it is supporting in the food chains? That is, the plant absorbs the nitrogen, the plant is intaken by the animals, in turn human being intake the animals as a food. So, in such a way then it is written as a nutrients in the soil, and then this rotation, the cyclic process happen again and again. In such a way the food chain process is stabilized with the help of nitrogen. The next is that it is very much supportive for the agricultural activity. How it is helpful? That is the nitrogen based fertilizers which boost the crop productivity as well as the soil health. So, it is enhancing the soil fertility and it supports the growth of the plant. So, in such a way the nitrogen is very much essential gas. Next gas is the oxygen. So, oxygen we all know that it is very much supportive for the breathing process. The human being inhale the oxygen and exhale the carbon dioxide. The same way what the plants do, it is a vice versa, it inhales the carbon dioxide and exhales the oxygen. So, in the breathing process the oxygen plays a vital role. So, it is known as the breath of life. It enables in combustion. So, already in the nitrogen process we have discussed that the oxygen is a very reactive gas. So, it is very much helpful for combustion. So, it enables combustion, so, and the oxygen is required for burning fuel, forest fire and industrial process. For burning activity, for combustion purpose, this oxygen is most essential gas. Next one is it drives the heat and energy production, that is oxygen is used in power plants as energy resources, and then for the automobiles and transportation modes, what is used in the engines, the oxygen is the most important gas, and in the household cooking also the oxygen plays a vital role in burning process. Oxygen plays a crucial role in metallurgic and welding processes, that is it supports the high temperature reaction as well as the metal processing have been done with the help of oxygen. So, next is the it is much helpful in the photosynthesis process. The plants, algae and cyanobacteria releases oxygen during their photosynthesis process. So, it is one of the major source by which the atmosphere is gaining the oxygen, and it also maintains the atmospheric that is oxygen balance. It is a constant replenishing, that is it constantly renovate the oxygen levels by the cyclic process. It also forms the ozone layer. The oxygen is one of the important factor, important gas which is helpful for the formation of ozone in the stratosphere. Stratosphere we will be discussing in the upcoming lecture, that is the layers of atmosphere in detail. And the oxygen forms the ozone layer that blocks the harmful ultraviolet radiation. So, it also regulates the atmospheric chemistry. It balances, the oxygen balances the reactive gases and drives the oxidation processes. It is helpful in the nutrient cycle and also biological productivity. Oxygen is also one of the important gas which plays an important role in the biogeochemical cycles, that is all the cyclic processes such as carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, water cycle, and it helps to sustain the life forms in the earth surface. The third important gas is carbon dioxide. So, as discussed earlier, the carbon dioxide proportion is very small, that is it is a meager amount, but the role which it plays is more important. The carbon dioxide is also known as a trace gas and it has a big impact. It also regulates and it plays an important role in controlling Earth's temperature balance. And it also supports the life processes, that is it is essential for plants photosynthesis as well as the ecosystem functioning. So, for all these processes what is essential? Carbon dioxide is most essential. Next is it traps the incoming ultraviolet radiation and also it traps the temperature, that is here if it is going to be carbon dioxide, it does not allow the temperature from the earth's surface, that is terrestrial radiation from the earth's surface, and then it forms as a blanket so that it keeps the earth's surface more warmer and comfortable for the feasible for the living beings to survive in the earth's surface. It also balances the carbon dioxide level, that is if the carbon dioxide level exceeds in the earth's surface, what will happen? It will increase the temperature. So, our earth will be more warmer. So that we are facing now. Carbon dioxide is one of the major greenhouse gases. The carbon dioxide plays a vital role in greenhouse effect. That is, carbon dioxide is absorbed by the plants. During the photosynthesis process, it produces food and oxygen with the help of the carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is also stored in the ocean. That is, it dissolves the carbon dioxide and it is also stored in the rock for the long time period, long time scales. The carbon dioxide is stored in the rocks. And it is a continuous exchange of this carbon dioxides which released through the respiration. What are all the source by which the carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere? That is by respiration, decomposition, volcanic activity and human actions. So these are all the sources of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide, if it is increased, then the concentration, if it is going to be increased, suddenly what will be happening? There will be a rise in temperature, and human activities, that is such as fossil fuel and then burning of fossil fuel and deforestation and industrial emissions. So all these and pollutants, all these will be the major cause for the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It is used as one of the climate monitoring factor. That is, if the carbon dioxide tends to help scientists to predict the future climate changes. Next one is that the water vapor. So water vapor is one of the component of dynamic, that is gases. It is one of the major gas which will be helpful for the formation of all weather phenomena in the atmosphere. So it is a major source of cloud formation and precipitation. The water vapor also determines the moisture level in the atmosphere. The impact of storms and rainfall is mainly due to the water vapor content. If the water vapor content is higher, what it will leads to? It will leads to storm and heavier rainfall. So in such a way, the impact of water vapor is much more in weather phenomena. The water vapor helps to trap the heat within the atmosphere, and it also regulates and maintains the earth's that is temperature and warmth, which will be helpful for the human being and other biological life forms to survive in the earth's surface. It enhances the natural greenhouse effect. So it is one of the strong influencer on the global temperature when it is concentration varies. Next is the highly concentrated in the troposphere. So this troposphere is also the lower layer of the atmosphere, which we will be discussing in the upcoming lecture. The most water vapor exists in the troposphere, that is the lower layer of the atmosphere where the weather phenomena takes place. Water vapor is much more essential in water cycle. That is, in the evaporation process, the water vapor is much important, and in the condensation process also the evaporation, that is water vapor is much important. Then in the precipitation process is also water vapor is one of the major criteria which determines the precipitation. So this is the cyclic process which we call it as a water cycle. So for this water cycle, which is essential, water vapor is much more essential. Then it is also a life support, and then it also supports the ecosystem of the earth's surface in the form of it provides the fresh water which is needed by plants, animals and human being. This is mainly because of water vapor content. The next is it also influences the climate variability. If there is a changes in the water vapor, it directly affect what? The temperature as well as the rainfall pattern. So it is directly influencing the temperature and rainfall. And water vapor also transfers the energy through the latent heat during the evaporation process as well as in the condensation process. It controls the heat transfer. Water vapor influence most in the climate feedbacks. That is, if there is a warming increases the water vapor, in turn further it enhances the warming. So this was the role which was played by the water vapor. So in such a way that this dynamic component, that is water vapor, plays a vital role. The next one is dust and aerosols. The dust and aerosols, it's also known as what? Suspended particles, particulate matter or particulate matter, which is suspended in the atmosphere. It does not stick, it suspend in the atmosphere. In what role the source, this suspended particulate matters are evolved, that is in the volcanic ash. If there is a volcanic eruption, it releases what? It releases the lava and then the ashes also. So that ashes which will be suspended in the atmosphere. Sea salt which have been generated by ocean waves and the transported by the wind. So because of that, what? It also suspended in the atmosphere. And pollen grain and pores, that is during the pollination time, pollen grains have been transmitted from one plant to another plant. So in that duration, that pollen grain is also suspended. Some of it have been suspended in the atmosphere. Dust and soil particles, that is it produces in the desert region and then dry lands and windy region. What happen if the wind blows, the dust particles, the fine silt sand will be flying in the air and it is suspended in the air, that is atmosphere. So these are all the sources of dust and aerosols. In human generated sources, the earlier we have discussed about the naturally how the dust and aerosols have been generated. In this we will be discussing about the human generated dust and aerosol particles, that is industrial emissions. Due to industrial activity, what happened? The smoke, soot and then chemical aerosols from the factories which will be due to the pollution which will be suspended in the atmosphere. And then vehicle exhaust, that is from the vehicle, the diesel and petrol engines which release the emissions, that emitted one, the dust and aerosols will be suspended in the atmosphere. Then in the construction and mining process, while construction takes place, we can see the dust will be there, and then in the mining quarries also we can see there will be most of the dust will be there in that particular region. So which will be suspended in the atmosphere. And burning of fuel. If we burn fuel, what happens? Due to the burning, the ashes and other dust particles, aerosols will be coming out of the burning, and then that waste will be suspended in the atmosphere. So these are all the human generated aerosols or dust particles into the atmosphere. How the dust and aerosols affect the weather and climate? It affects in the visibility. If there is a smoke, you imagine whether it is visible, it will affect the visibility, and especially the smog. Smog is nothing but it is a smoke plus fog. So it combines to make a smog. The smog which is highly prevailing in the metropolitan cities, it is one of the major impact which have been seen nowadays. That is the most important impact of this dust and aerosols. Next is that the role in cloud formation. So the dust and aerosols forms as a nuclei and it helps in the cloud formation. So this is one of the major role which have been played by dust and aerosols in cloud formation. Next, albedo effect, that is it reflects and absorb what? Sunlight. So because of that, the altering Earth's temperature and energy budget have been maintained by this one, what? The dust and aerosols. Environmental and health impact. How the dust and aerosols impact on the environment and health, that is it affects the air quality. So if it's going to be dust or smog, what it will happen? The air will be polluted, so it increases the concentration of the dust and aerosols, the quality of air, which leads to the pollution episodes. Next is that the climate influence. How it alters the climate? It alters the climate by the heating balance, and it also contributes to the warming or cooling of the atmosphere as well as the earth surface. The next one is in the human being, the health, how it is affected. All the respiratory related disease such as respiratory issues, allergies, asthma, and then cardiovascular problems have been as a result of this dust and aerosols. Then it affects the ecosystem also. How it affects the ecosystem? The dust and aerosols deposit in the leaf and it affects the respiration of the plant, and also the in the water body. If the dust and aerosol is going to be deposited, what it will happen? It will lead to the deterioration of the quality of water. So far we have discussed about the various gases, that is stable gas, variable gas, all the gases. Now we will be discussing about the two important spheres. So and then the concentration of the gases in the spheres. That is, the first one is homosphere. Approximately in the homosphere, that is 88 kilometer it stretches from the earth's surface, and then it composes with the uniform and it contains all the breathable air and weather phenomena. So it stretches from earth's surface to here. And then the next one is the heterosphere. The heterosphere, it's above this homosphere. So till here it's a homosphere. Then comes the heterosphere. So it is in the higher altitude, and the gas composition changes significantly in this layer, and it has the less density formation. It affects the space as well as the upper atmospheric phenomena. So homosphere, the homosphere is a well mixed atmosphere. Why it is a well mixed atmosphere? It includes the troposphere, stratosphere and mesosphere. So these are all the layers of atmosphere. So these layers composed of what? This layer together known as homosphere, and it has the uniform composition, that is the gases are well mixed. Why it is well mixed? We have to note this one. Why it is well mixed? It is well mixed because of turbulence and convection current. Turbulence and convectional current, what leads to the mixing of gases. It has the dominant gases like nitrogen, oxygen, argon and trace gases, which is also remaining the constant in this homosphere. So this will be very much clear in your next lecture. So while we discuss in the layers of atmosphere, so this you can understand very well in that particular lecture. Then next is the heterosphere, that is the layer of gas separation. So this layer of gas separation begins above the 88 kilometers. It includes what? Thermosphere and exosphere, that is the above higher altitude, higher layer of atmosphere. This gas separation is by the molecular weight, that is the heavier weight. We know that heavier weight gases will be settling in the lower part of the earth's surface, and then the lighter one, it automatically rises higher. So that process will happen in this heterosphere. And then this stratified atmospheric composition, that is each layer has this distinct gas dominance. The light gas in the upper atmosphere, that is the in the upper atmosphere, in the evolution, if you recall in the evolution of atmospheric session, we have discussed about the earlier origin of gas is what? Hydrogen and helium. So this hydrogen and helium is dominating in which part? That is the heterosphere. And then it has the reduced atmospheric mixing. Why it has reduced atmospheric mixing? So in the homosphere we have the turbulence as well as the convection current, but here that is not in case of this heterosphere. So in absence of turbulence and the convection current, this layer have the reduced atmospheric mixing. So then the transition from heavy to light gases, that is from oxygen and nitrogen, it declines to what? It declines in the altitudes. So, this is the vertical distribution of gases in the upper atmosphere. Next one is the gas concentration decrease with height. It also leads to the lower pressure and the density at the higher altitude. In the higher altitude, what happens? It leads to low pressure as well as the density also will be in the lower level. It influences the space activities, that is, it influences the satellite drags, orbital decay, and then communicational signals. So, these are all the influenced by the heterosphere. Next, it also influences the flight and aeronomy, that is, it is essential for understanding the rocketry, re-entry of it, and then the upper atmospheric studies. Altogether, while we summarize this entire lecture, so we have understand what the atmosphere is mainly composed of the nitrogen, oxygen and argon. Variable elements also, that is like water vapor and ozone, which is affecting weather. Each gas have its own uniqueness and it plays a vital role in their part, that is, they are oxygen which supports the life, nitrogen which provides stability, carbon dioxide and water vapor which regulates the temperature, and ozone which protects from the ultraviolet radiation. All these atmospheric gases together maintain life forms and the climatic balance on the earth's surface. So, in today's lecture we have covered the composition of atmosphere. In the next lecture we will be discussing about structural and thermal layer of atmosphere. Thank you.